The Newsday continues here on the One News Now. I'm Denise Dan. President Marcos has signed into law the Magna Carta of Filipino seafarers. It enumerates the rights and duties of seafarers and the obligations of maritime agencies for overseas workers. Marcos cited threats to the safety of maritime workers in the Red Sea, where Houthi rebels are carrying out drone and missile attacks.
At its core, this new law aims to uphold the fundamental rights of our overseas seafarers, their rights to fair wages, safe working conditions, and skills and competency development, amongst others.
The measure's principal author, Senator Raffy Tulfo, hailed the signing of the Magna Carta of Filipino seafarers. Tulfo thanked Marcos and his colleagues in the Senate for its swift passage.
I'm really overwhelmed sa saya. Maraming salamat. At mga seafarers, para sa inyo ito, wala akong masabi kundi saludo ako sa inyo. God bless.
The transport strike launched by Piston and Manibela continues today. This is part of their call to abolish the Public Transport Modernization Program and the renewal of franchises and registrations for all public utility vehicles. The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB, insisted the strike had little to no impact to the commuters yesterday. However, News 5 encountered some commuters who struggled to ride a jeepney to their work yesterday. Cubao-Quiapo Jeepney Operators and Drivers Association President Alan Figueroa described the cooperative program of the government as bogus.
Paano yung mga drivers operator? Di bebenta ngayon yan kung sining mataas na bidding sa kanila ibibigay prangkisa para yung mga modern tatakbo sa rota namin. At yun ang iniingatan namin.
The Senate has approved the 2025 budget proposal of the Office of the President in just 10 minutes. Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin delivered his speech detailing the Office of the President's requested budget. Compared to the 2024 budget, the proposed budget for next year is 1.88% lower. Bersamin said the current budget proposal is already enough for the office to do its mandate. After Bersamin's speech, the Senate approved the budget for plenary debates. Philippine Ambassador to the U.S., Babe Romualdez, says China is clearly testing not only the Quad nations but also the Philippines. He emphasized the importance of getting global support against China's aggression.
Quad leaders expressing serious concerns over China's coercive and intimidating actions in the South China Sea. Although they didn't make direct mention of China, it wasn't until much later that U.S. President Joe Biden was caught on a hot mic saying that China is testing us all in the region. I wonder if you had any thoughts on that.
Well, there's no question about it that China is not only testing the Quad, but also even the Philippines. Quite obviously that we're being tested almost every day in our territorial waters. But we're using maximum restraint, and the President's made it clear that we will do what we need to do in supplying especially the Sierra Madre and continue to patrol our own territorial waters without necessarily creating any conflict. However, as our Secretary of Defense said, we will continue and we will not stop because as far as we're concerned, we're doing what is right, which is what is rightfully ours.
Tell us, what was the reaction inside the room when President Joe Biden was caught or heard saying that China is testing us?
Well, I don't think there was really any major. He publicly even said it already in the end anyway, that indeed China is testing not only the Quad, but as I said, the entire world, the free world that is really very much against the kind of aggressive behavior that China has been doing in the South China Sea. That's precisely the reason why we continue to reach out to as many countries as possible into seeing our point that we want to try to resolve all these issues in a very civil and a very peaceful way as much as we can, just like what the United States and other countries are doing.
Ambassador, reports are saying that at least 20 countries plan to hold a summit on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly, and one of the topics could be about, China's behavior. Could you confirm that to us?
Well, I mentioned that in a forum that it is not really a summit, but more of a get together of like-minded countries to try to look into, well, one thing for sure, maritime security and maritime safety, which includes, of course, the South China Sea.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. In weather, the easterlies continue to bring rains in some parts of the country. Isolated rain showers are expected over Bicol, Eastern Visayas, Caraga, and Davao region. Metro Manila and the rest of the country may also expect rains due to localized thunderstorms. Pag-asa is not monitoring any low-pressure area within and outside the country as of the moment. Vice President Kamala Harris and Donald Trump intensifies their presidential campaigns in key states. Here's Harris's campaign officials are weighing a potential visit to the U.S.-Mexico border. Her team are trying to close the gap with Trump on the issue of immigration. Meanwhile, Trump was in a policy roundtable with farmers in Pennsylvania. He claimed that Chinese President Xi Jinping agreed to buy $50 billion of American farm products if he wins the elections. Genevieve Villafranca Jopanda, co-chairperson of Filipino Americans for Harris Waltz 2024, weighs in on the upcoming U.S. election. She says more Phil-Ams are now getting involved in U.S. politics. Here's an excerpt from her interview on The Big Story.
When you say volunteers, what is the campaign like in the United States, especially for Democrats?
Sure. We're actually very close to the Democratic National Committee and to the campaign. And the Filipino American Harris Waltz organization is an actual affinity group of the campaign. So there are about 14 Asian affinity groups. So there's Korean Americans, Japanese Americans, Chinese, and there's us, and we actually work together with our communities, and we basically ask our communities what are our issues and policies that that are important to us, and we actually work with the campaign, and we tell them. And so we work closely with them. We meet with them every week, and I think it's important that we have that dialogue so that way we know that whoever we elect into the White House actually understands our policies and the issues that represent us.
I want to go to the 3 of the 7 key battleground states that we mentioned a while ago, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina.
Sure.
What is working for former President Trump in these states, and what kind of work does Kamala need to do to be able to get that lead?
So I just read this morning that Kamala is ahead in Georgia and Nevada. She just surpassed them in the last 2 weeks. And it's only by a very small margin, about 0.2, 0.3 points. But she was able to get that advance in the last 2 weeks. She's only behind in one of the battleground states, which is Wisconsin. But that's where Governor Tim Walz is from. So I think that she's doing a roadshow. She's doing a good job. Her campaign is reaching out to the communities of color, and they're taking the time to get to know, the battleground states. In 2020, the margin of victory between the battleground states is 40,000 votes. So if you think about it and what we do as an organization, as Filipino Americans for Harris Waltz, in Daly City, the most Filipino-dense city in the country, has 40,000 Filipinos, right? And that's in Northern California. So imagine if all 40,000 of those Filipinos voted, that contributes towards a win, right?
Puts her over the line.
Yes. So that's why every vote counts.
And those are the top stories of the hour. I'm Denise Tan. We are One News.